Welcome back to the deep dive. I was looking at a map of the Horn of Africa this morning, specifically focusing on Somalia. And I feel like if I asked 10 people on the street what words come to mind when they hear Somali, I'd get the same list every time.
Oh, absolutely. You'd hear piracy, warlords, maybe Black Hawk Down,
Uh-huh.
and definitely that heavy catch-all term, failed state.
Right. It's basically the textbook example of what happens when a government collapses and
Yeah.
nothing takes its place. It's the cautionary tale for the international community.
And for 30 years, the world has poured billions of dollars into trying to fix it. Trying to build a central government from the top down, usually starting in the capital, Mogadishu. And for the most part, those efforts, they haven't worked.
But, and this is why I was so excited to dig into this specific stack of research today, there is a glitch in that narrative, a massive glitch. Right there in the northwest corner of Somalia, emerging from the exact same civil war, with the same culture, same religion, same clan divisions, is a place called Somaliland.
The sources call it the quiet outlier.
It's incredibly quiet compared to its neighbors. It has relative peace. It has a functioning democratic system. They've had peaceful transfers of power, like presidents actually stepping down when they lose. But here's the kicker. They have almost no broad international recognition. And compared to the billions thrown at the rest of Somalia, they've had very limited resources. So the core question we're asking today is, how? How did a region emerging from the same chaos as the rest of the country manage to pull this off?
That is the million-dollar question. And the answer we found in the research is fascinating because it is completely counterintuitive. The central argument from our source material is that Somaliland didn't succeed by copying a Western model. They didn't succeed by trying to defeat tribalism or clan identity.
Which is usually the first thing Western consultants say you have to do, right? Get rid of the tribes, build a modern state.
Precisely. That is the standard playbook. But Somaliland, they flipped that script. They succeeded because they transformed clan identity from an instrument of war into the actual foundation for modern governance. They didn't fight who they were. They used it to build who they wanted to become.
So today we are going to unpack this hybrid democracy. We're going to look at how they turned clan elders into a parliament, why being broke and having no foreign aid might have actually been their secret weapon, and finally, what realistic lessons this offers for Somalia and maybe state building everywhere.
It is a story about doing the opposite of what everyone expects.
Let's dive into that first big misconception. I feel like whenever we talk about modernizing a country in the developing world, there's this assumption that you have to move past tribalism, that clan loyalty is the enemy of the state.
That is the standard zero-sum view. The idea is that the state must hold the monopoly on loyalty. If you're loyal to your clan, you can't be loyal to the nation. And to be fair, looking at the Somali Civil War in the late 80s and early 90s, you can see why people think that. Warlords weaponized clan loyalty to fuel violence.
Right, it was the fuel for the fire.
Exactly. But the leaders in Somaliland back in the early 90s, they recognized a hard truth. You cannot build peace by pretending deeply rooted social institutions don't exist. The clan is everything in Somali society. It's your social safety net, your identity, your protection.
It's like trying to build a house while ignoring the foundation that's already there. If you try to pave over it, the cracks are just going to come through eventually.
That's a great analogy. The insight in Somaliland was, this thing that is destroying us is also the only thing strong enough to save us. So they adopted a strategy of peace first, and this is crucial. Most post-conflict states, often urged by the UN or Western powers, they rush to create a central government. They want a president, a flag, an army immediately.
Because that looks like order. You can put a flag on a podium and take a photo.
Right. But Somaliland didn't do that. From 1991 to 1997, that's 6 years, they prioritized peace over power. They didn't rush to centralized authority. Instead, they focused on community-led peace conferences.
And the research highlights two specific ones, right? The Borama and Barao conferences.
Yes. And I want to paint a picture here. These weren't meetings in fancy hotels in Geneva or London with catered lunches. These were hundreds of elders gathering under acacia trees or in local halls. They were chewing quat, reciting poetry, and talking for months. Sometimes years. It was an incredibly slow process, but they relied on something called zir.
Zir. Okay, let's unpack that term because it seems central to why this worked.
Zir is Somali customary law. It's a system of justice and conflict resolution that has existed for centuries. It's not written in a book. It's a precedent-based system carried by the elders. And importantly, it is based on compensation and consensus, not just punishment.
So instead of a judge striking a gavel based on some written constitution that nobody knew, they used the laws people already trusted to negotiate ceasefires.
Exactly. If Clan A hurts someone from Clan B, Zaire dictates exactly how many camels or what resources need to be transferred to restore balance. It's about social cohesion. So the peace was negotiated and renewed, not declared from above. It was inclusive and, frankly, it was messy. But because it was negotiated by the elders and enforced locally, it stuck.
That is such a key insight. Stability must precede state building. You can't build the roof if the walls are still shaking.
Exactly. And that brings us to the aha moment of their political system. Because eventually, you do need a government. You can't just have meetings under trees forever. You need to trade, you need to issue passports, you need infrastructure.
Right. So how did they make that jump? How do you go from clan elders discussing peace to a modern parliament with voting and laws?
This is where Somaliland did something truly unique. They created a hybrid political model. They didn't choose between tradition and modernity. They mashed them together.
A mashup. I like it.
Think of it this way. In most attempts at state building in Africa, the traditional elders, the chiefs, are often pushed aside to make room for the politicians in suits. In Somaliland, they institutionalized the elders. They created the Gurti.
The Gurti. That's the House of Elders, right?
Correct. It is effectively the upper house of their parliament.
That is fascinating. So it's a bicameral system. Lower house is elected politicians. Upper house is traditional clan leaders.
Yes, and there is a very specific strategic reason for this. In a post-conflict society, if you leave the powerful elders outside the government, what do they become?
Spoilers. They have the influence to undermine you.
Exactly. They might turn into warlords or mobilize their kin against the state. But if you give them a fancy seat in the upper house, a salary, and a constitutional role, they are part of the system. They are inside the tent.
So what does the Gurti actually do? Do they pass laws?
Their primary function is to act as the mediator. When there's a political crisis or when things get heated in the lower house, the elders step in. They provide cultural legitimacy to the state. They ensure that modern laws don't violate cultural norms. It's a stabilizing force.
That makes so much sense. But I have to ask about the democracy part. Because if you have a system based on clans, doesn't voting just become a census? I mean, if my clan is bigger than your clan, I win every time. That isn't democracy, that's just demographics.
That is the inherent risk in the region. If you just let everyone vote along clan lines, the biggest family wins forever. Somaliland's solution to this was, frankly, brilliant. It's a piece of constitutional engineering that limits the number of political parties.
Limits them. Usually democracy means anyone can form a party if they get enough signatures.
Not here. The Constitution strictly limits the number of official parties allowed to contest general elections to 3.
Just 3. Why that specific number?
Do the math. In Somaliland, there are 4 major clan families, plus a number of smaller minority groups. If you allow unlimited parties, every clan forms its own party. You get the Clan A party, the Clan B party, and it just formalizes the division.
Right, you'd never have to talk to anyone else. You just rally your cousins.
Exactly. But if there are 4 big clans and only 3 parties, the math doesn't work for tribalism. No single clan can own a party. And more importantly, no single clan is big enough to win an election with just their own votes.
You have to build a coalition.
You have to. If you want to be president, you are mathematically forced to reach across the aisle. You have to go to other clans and say, hey, join my platform, I'll offer you this cabinet position, or we will support this policy for your region. It forces cross-clan cooperation.
It turns the parties into national organizations rather than tribal vehicles. That is such a clever constraint. It's artificial, but it forces the behavior they want.
It acknowledges the reality of clans, but designs the rules to mitigate the bad parts. And the result is a democracy that feels locally owned. It doesn't feel like a suit imported from Europe that doesn't quite fit. It feels Somali.
Now, I want to move to what might be the most surprising part of this whole deep dive, the economics of it, or rather the lack of economics.
The benefit of being broke.
Yeah. Usually if you tell a developing nation, hey, you're going to get 0 international recognition and almost no foreign aid, that's a death sentence. That's a disaster. But the source material argues that for Somaliland, this was actually a secret weapon. How is that possible?
It's the concept of the revenue bargain. Because Somaliland wasn't recognized as a sovereign state by the UN, they couldn't access loans from the World Bank or the IMF. They couldn't get those massive aid packages that prop up other governments.
So they were on their own.
Completely. And that meant the government had only one place to get money to pay the police, the army, the administrators,
The people.
their own citizens, taxes. They had to tax the merchants, the livestock traders, the port in Berbera. And when a government has to look its citizens in the eye and ask for taxes to survive, something profound happens. The citizens say, okay, we will pay you, but we expect services, we expect security, and we expect you not to steal it.
It creates a real social contract, a transaction.
It forces accountability. The leaders are accountable to the taxpayers, not to foreign donors in New York or Brussels. If the government stops delivering security, the traders stop paying taxes and the government collapses.
That is a huge distinction.
It's massive. Compare that to the rest of Somalia during the same period. The governments in Mogadishu were often receiving massive amounts of international aid. We call these foreign rents,
Free money.
essentially. And when your budget comes from foreign donors, who do you need to keep happy? The donors. You write nice reports. You don't necessarily need to keep your own citizens happy because they aren't funding you.
It breaks the feedback loop.
Exactly. It also creates a massive incentive for corruption. Everyone wants to be in charge because that's what the aid money is. It becomes a resource to fight over.
So in a weird way, the aid money fueled the conflict in Somalia, while the lack of money in Somaliland fueled democracy.
That is the argument. States built for donors tend to collapse because they have external legitimacy but weak internal trust. Somaliland had to build internal trust just to keep the lights on.
That is such a powerful lesson. It really makes you question the whole international aid industrial complex.
Yeah.
It's just that resources without accountability can be dangerous.
It absolutely does. In Somaliland, the check and balance wasn't a Supreme Court. It was the fact that the government couldn't afford to alienate its own people.
So we have the peace process, we have the hybrid government, and we have the self-funding. But I want to talk about how this evolved, because the source makes it clear this wasn't an overnight jump to one person, one vote.
No, and that patience was key. The transition followed very distinct stages. They started with clan-based representation. That was step one.
To restore trust.
Right. Everyone needs to feel safe. Then they moved to power-sharing arrangements to prevent anyone from being excluded. And only after that, years later, did they move to political parties and competitive elections.
They viewed democracy as a process, not an event.
Exactly. And because they took it slow, the system could handle the shock of competition. I mean, look at the outcomes. Somaliland has had opposition candidates win the presidency and take power peacefully. That is rare in stable democracies, let alone in a post-conflict region.
It's incredibly rare. Usually the incumbent just changes the constitution to stay in power.
Right. But here the system was robust enough to say, no, you lost, step down. And they did.
So this brings us to the big application question. We have this model next door to Somalia. Somalia is still struggling with stability. So does Somalia just need to copy-paste the Somaliland constitution? Do we just tell them create a GERTI and limit parties to 3?
The short answer is no. And the source is very careful about this. You can't just photocopy a government. Somalia is much larger, it's more diverse, and it has a different geopolitical history. What works in the north might not work exactly the same way in the south.
Context matters?
But the principles, those are absolutely transferable. And the source outlines 4 key recommendations for Somalia, or really any state-building project, based on this deep dive.
Lay them out for us. What's the blueprint?
First, start locally. Somaliland empowered districts and communities before trying to enforce a strong central authority. If the local level works, the national level has a foundation.
Don't build the roof before you built the walls.
Exactly. Second, formalize the elders. Don't sideline traditional leaders. Integrate them into the governance structure so they have a stake in the peace.
Make them senators, not spoilers.
Third, sequence your reforms. Peace must come before elections. This is a hard one for the international community because we love elections. We love the photo op of the purple finger. But if you hold an election in a war zone without established institutions, you just get a violent election.
You're just calling up who has the most guns.
Precisely. You need legitimacy first. And the fourth one is the hardest. Aid reform. Shift accountability from donors to citizens.
Turn off the tap.
Or at least redirect it. Ensure that the state needs to need its people. If the state doesn't rely on its citizens for revenue, it won't respect them.
It's really about accepting hybridity, isn't it? We have this binary view in the West. Either you're a modern democracy or you're a tribal backwater. Somaliland proves there's a middle path.
That's the core term. A Somali democracy does not need to look Western to be democratic. It needs to reflect Somali realities.
It's amazing to think that while we've been wringing our hands about the Somali problem for 30 years, the solution, or at least a very strong version of it, was being built right next door, quietly, under the radar.
It challenges a very powerful myth that we hold, that clan identity and democracy are incompatible, that you have to choose one or the other.
But Somaliland proves that tribalism was the bridge, not the obstacle.
Precisely. The clan elders provided trust where institutions were absent. Customary law delivered justice when the courts didn't exist. Consensus politics reduced that winner-take-all mentality that leads to war.
So really the lesson is that peace and democracy don't come from erasing tradition. They come from governing through it.
That is the takeaway. Somaliland's journey wasn't miraculous. It wasn't magic. It was deliberate, it was patient, and it was locally grounded. They respected who they were while gradually reshaping it.
It really makes you wonder about other places in the world.
It does.
We spend billions of dollars on steep building projects in the Middle East, in Africa, all over. And so often, they fail. And you have to ask, are they failing because the people aren't ready for democracy? Or are they failing because we're trying to force them to use a map that doesn't match the territory?
If Somaliland succeeded by ignoring the standard international playbook and using its own traditions, how many other failed state-building projects are failing simply because we are trying to erase local culture instead of building on it?
That is a thought that is going to stick with me. Sometimes the most powerful model isn't the one in the textbook. It's the one built next door.
Couldn't have said it better.
That's it for this deep dive into the Somaliland experiment. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.